told you that the hunt for a theory of everything, that one single idea to explain the entire universe, didn't actually start with modern physics? What if it started thousands of years ago in ancient India? Well, today we're going to uncover a pretty hidden chapter in the history of science, where ancient wisdom seems to predict some of our most advanced discoveries. So let's dive right in. Right, so think about it. We usually credit people like Einstein when we talk about the search for unified theory. But this question right here, it kind of flips that on its head. What if that whole quest is actually thousands of years older? And what if the first steps were taken not in some European lab, but by an ancient Indian sage? That's the core idea we're going to explore. Okay, first up, the universe in a particle. So, long before the first atom was ever even imagined in the West, let alone split, an ancient Indian school of thought developed its very own atomic theory. And honestly, the parallels to modern physics are absolutely mind-blowing. Our journey here really begins with this philosophical system called Vaisheshika. It was pioneered by a thinker named Kayda, and you can basically think of this as an ancient form of physics. Their whole mission was to break down reality into its smallest possible parts, what they called particularities, all to figure out how the entire universe was actually built from the ground up. And here is the absolute core of the idea. Kayda suggested that everything in the material world is built from 4 types of indivisible, eternal particles. He called them anu. Now, these aren't atoms like the ones you learned about in chemistry class. It's better to think of them as these super fundamental building blocks that represent the classical elements, earth, water, air, and fire. Okay, this is where things get really, really wild. So when modern researchers put Kayda's system side by side with our standard model of particle physics, which is, our current scientific map of all the fundamental particles, they find some incredible parallels. Get this. The fire atom, or anu, seems to line up perfectly with the photon, the particle of light. The air anu maps to the electron, and this is just amazing, the water and earth atoms appear to correspond directly to the up and down quarks, the tiny, tiny particles that build protons and neutrons inside every single atom. I mean, the one-to-one mapping is almost eerie. And that brings us right back to that opening question about a unified theory. See, Kayda didn't just describe particles. He also proposed a force that governed them all. He called it adrishta, which literally means the unseen. This was his single, invisible principle that he said explained all atomic interactions. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like the modern search for one single force to explain the entire universe? So this systematic way of thinking, it wasn't just for the cosmos, right? Let's zoom in from the particle level down to the planet itself and take a look at the biological world. Turns out, the same rigorous analytical approach was applied to the study of plants in an ancient science called Vriksha Yurveda, or the wisdom of plants. So there was this scholar named Parasara, and he created this stunningly detailed system for classifying plants. And we're not just talking about what was edible or useful. No, he grouped plants into families based on their physical structure, especially their flowers, things we recognize today like the legume family or the citrus family. He was doing systematic botany centuries before it was formally established in the West by people like Linnaeus. And Parashara's work also shows this incredibly deep understanding of plant life cycles. He laid out the process of germination with amazing precision. He noted how the seed's bijapatra, what we now call the cotyledon, nourishes the young sprout until it can grow its own roots and start feeding itself. I mean, that is basically a textbook description of plant embryology, written thousands of years ago. It's incredible. So what do we have? We have these advanced ideas in particle physics and in botany. But the really cool part is that these weren't just happening in isolation. They were all part of a much larger, interconnected system for understanding the world. And it wasn't just about the natural world either. This rigorous analytical approach was everywhere. Just take a look at this problem from a mathematical text of the era. This isn't simple arithmetic, right? This is complex algebra. It just goes to show the level of abstract, systematic thinking that was the common thread running through their physics, their botany, and their mathematics. And really, this is the big picture here. These weren't separate, siloed-off disciplines. Physics, botany, math. They were all just threads in a single holistic tapestry of knowledge, which we now know as the Indian Knowledge System, or IKS. The whole goal wasn't just to specialize in one area, but to understand the fundamental principles that connect everything, from the tiniest atom to the biggest tree to the stars in the sky.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? Why is it so important to look back at these ancient systems of thought today?
Well, the really crucial point is this. Our conventional history of science, the one that's often presented as this straight line from ancient Greece to the European Renaissance to today, it's just incomplete. The evidence in these texts suggests a much richer, much more complex story. It shows that profound scientific inquiry and systematic thought have been happening all over the world for a very, very long time. It's a global tapestry of human curiosity.
Which really just leaves us with this final thought. If this much sophisticated knowledge can be found in just one ancient tradition, what else have we missed? How many other brilliant chapters in the story of science are just out there, waiting to be rediscovered? It's a pretty exciting question to think about. Thanks for tuning in.